Well, hi, I'm Noah Bradley with Handmade House TV, and on this week's episode we're going to talk all about fireplaces, wood stoves, Rumford fireplaces, and Russian fireplaces. Stay tuned. Well, all right, let's get started. I've got a nice cozy fire in my fireplace behind me today. And if you've been following along on Handmade House TV, you know that I'm a big fan of fireplaces. They provide so much in our life, from the warmth that they give to the entertainment, to the soul experience that when folks come into my house, the first thing they do is they go gather around my fireplace. Nothing creates an atmosphere quite like a fireplace, and if you want to know more about how to create the ideal fireplace, I created a previous Handmade House TV episode where I go into great detail with regard to this fireplace, and you might want to consider joining me in the upcoming Stonemason Academy where I share how to build this fireplace step by step. But I get a lot of comments from folks that seem to believe that I am a proponent of fireplaces and therefore I do not like wood stoves. And that's not true at all. And the fact is that I absolutely love wood stoves. I own a wood stove in this home on a different fireplace, and I make use of it regularly. I've owned a wood stove for the last, a long time, decades. I've had a fireplace in my home since I was born, but basically wood stoves became popular in the 1970s, and I've had one ever since. There's a lot of virtues to wood stoves. They're a lot more efficient than what a fireplace is, that we get the most amount of heat from our wood that we cut. We can heat our homes with a wood stove. Even if we don't want to heat our homes regularly with a wood stove, they're a wonderful source there for emergencies. That even a backup generator cannot handle the heating of a home during the winter time. It's very possible that a wood stove can be the difference between life and death, or at least frozen pipes and not frozen pipes to have in a home. So my recommendation to everyone is to have both a wood stove and a fireplace, and you can have both of those in the same chimney. If you're going to go to the trouble of building a chimney, I highly advise a fireplace in the most prominent visible room that you have in your home. Here, this is in my living room. Sometimes that if I'm going to go ahead and build a chimney, I'm going to put two flues within the chimney, one for a wood stove and one for a fireplace. Now, where that second flue can be is that frequently the chimneys will start in the basement area. A flue and a wood stove in a basement area is the perfect area to have a wood stove, in that the heat from the wood stove will carry through the rest of the floors. Or a lot of times the chimney is located within the home, whether or not an addition is put off one side of it, or the chimney is located in the center of the main part of the home, that on one side of it you can have your fireplace, and on the opposing side you can have a wood stove. You can decide which unit you might want to use on any particular day, or you can use both on a particular day. But a wood stove is a fire inside of a box. It just cannot give you the charm and the appeal and the soul enriching experience that a fireplace can have. And when it comes to building such structures as log cabins, we just expect to see a fireplace within them. And so I've had folks ask me and everything, what do you do about this dilemma if I'm building a small log cabin and I only have one flue potential within it, and it really makes sense for me to have a wood stove. I still recommend people to build a stone fireplace, and a wood stove can be placed in the opening of a fireplace and vented through a fireplace opening, and it would look better tucked within a fireplace. And also the fact is that whenever it comes time for you to sell your home, or maybe you'll reach a point in your life where you don't want a wood stove, that the wood stove can be extracted. The next buyer who might be interested in your home is not interested in a wood stove lifestyle, and they would be able to use the fireplace. So if you're building a small log cabin, tiny one, I recommend building a fireplace. If you want to use a wood stove, then adapt to the fireplace. If you're building a larger little bit of a log cabin with a lean-to off the back of it, still with not enough room for 2 flues within it, I recommend you put the fireplace in the log cabin and then the little lean-to addition off the back of it that becomes your kitchen, to just put a triple steel chimney kit that goes through the roof, and put a wood stove back in that kitchen area that can help you cook with. You can cook on top of it. Kitchen needs to be nice and warm as well. Wood stoves tend to dry the air, and a lot of people will dry their herbs in the kitchen environment. It's a nice place to have a wood stove in a kitchen. And then I'm frequently asked about my opinions about Rumford fireplaces and Russian fireplaces. Rumford Fireplaces, I've built a couple of them, probably maybe half a dozen of them through the course of my career. Frequently when I've done it, it's been the chimney upstairs where the owner is interested in not carrying too much firewood. What a Rumford fireplace is basically it's a very shallow fireplace, where only 2 or 3 logs would be lit, and they would be lit in blazing glory, where they would burn intensely, and then the fire would go out, and then one would close the dampers down, or at least turn them down a whole lot so not much air is being drawn out of the room, and the back of the fireplace would have been heated up because of the intense fire. And so the intense fire plus the warmth of the fireplace would use a minimal amount of wood and get the most efficiency out of a fireplace. Whereas the Russian fireplace is basically quite a few series of the path of what the heat going from the home goes through it, so it weaves throughout the chimney, where the chimney will absorb the most amount of heat and then emit it back into the home. So both the Rumford and the Russian fireplaces are the desire to seek a middle ground between the lack of efficiency of a fireplace and the super efficiency of a wood stove. And so what you end up is getting some kind of compromise between the two. That is with the Rumford fireplace, you really can't have a really nice, enjoyable fire with coals and a fire that people can gather around. It's a quick light, you're over with, you're done with. My experience with them is that they tend to be a little bit more prone to smoking within the room, and that every client I've ever built the Rumfords for, they've used it once or twice and then never used it again. Frequently these halfway between mediums that we come up with reminds me a lot of the halfway between the truck and the car experiments that went on in the United States in the 1970s. Chevrolet created the El Camino, and Ford created the Ranchero, which were vehicles that looked sort of like a car and they looked sort of like a pickup truck, and they were supposed to be the best of what a car had to offer and what the best of a truck had to offer. But instead they offered all of the hauling capability of a car and the comfort of a pickup truck in riding in them. And so they didn't last very long, and that's my opinion of the Russian and the Rumford fireplace. The Russian fireplace, I've had a lot of people bring the issue up to me. A lot of people have inquired about it, but I have never met a single individual that built one. And I'm not saying they haven't built, because obviously they have been, but there's a lot of effort, a lot of expense goes into creating a complicated system that is the Russian fireplace. I understand that they are higher maintenance as far as cleaning them goes. I don't clean my own chimneys. They're too tall for me, and I don't climb on roofs anymore at my age. And my chimney sweep said he said that he's cleaned one, and it was an absolute nightmare to clean it. I'm not saying any of this to dissuade you from the others, but when it comes to enjoyment of a fire, nothing compares to a good standard masonry fireplace. And when it comes to heating our homes, to having an emergency source of heat, nothing compares to owning a wood stove. And so the best home that you can achieve in your future is to have both a good fireplace and a good wood stove. I hope this helps. Thank you so much for joining me on this week's episode of Handmade House TV. I would like to thank 5 new members of the Handmade House Guild: Rob Beauvais, Daniel Pilot, Alan Grace, Fabian Askerko, and John Rochon. Thank you guys so much for supporting the Handmade House Guild and Handmade House TV, and I thank you for all of your comments and emails that you send me. I do my best to respond to each and every one. I'm Noah at handmadehouses.com. You take care. We'll see you next week.